Peace, peace, peace. That was fire. That was fire. The song was fire. What's going on, people? This is your boy, Solar Mind. If you don't know me, you can check me out on Solar Vision Debate League. I host debates. But I'm not here to host debates today. I'm here to talk about a very important topic and an individual that likes to promote what I'm going to be talking about today. I'm going to be talking about today the white man's science and the black people that promote this white man's science. So I'm featuring Cedric Ortega, right? The reason why I'm featuring him is because he has been lately at the forefront of promoting the white man science. So I know some people out there may be wondering, what is the white man science? Is science just a thing that is universal? Are you attaching white man to science? Very good question. Very good question. I will be getting into the difference between science and the white man science, and Cedric Ortega, right? Cedric, for some reason, he is one of the people that I've seen lately, because there's a lot of people out there doing it. There's a lot of black people out there doing it now, right? He's been one of the people that I've been seeing lately pushing this white man's science. And the reason why he pushes the white man's science is because he's a fool. Those may be harsh words to some people, but it really isn't. I'm just really going by the definition of the word fool. He is easily duped by the white man. He really thinks in his mind that when the white man does his research and when he does his sciences, it's just purely based off of science. That there's nothing funding that particular project. There's nothing that is inspiring while they're doing said research. They're just doing it just because they want to know more about science. Especially here in the hells of North America. Why I would call them fools is because the person that you are so trusting has a history of using different mechanisms, manipulating the delicate fabric of nature in order for his control and advantage in conquering, right? So we're going to dig into that. Science and the white man science. See, science would be, the technology of what they call today gunpowder. Because, you can use it for various reasons, right? Really, they accredited the agents for discovering, like, the use of the actual substance that we today call gunpowder. The reason why we call it gunpowder today is because of the white man's science. It's because he took, what can be used for different purposes, and he uses it now, weaponize it, and use it to conquer people. That's a portion of what we're calling the white man's science. So we're going to dig into this, so what's going on with the people? Once again, I go by the name of Solar Mind. Shout out to the Lion's Den. And shout out to Karima for hosting this lecture. All right. So getting into the meat and potatoes of this discussion. I want to first talk about certain theories that we have been accustomed to believing and why these things should be further researched and challenged, right? We could first deal all with Thomas Robert Malthus. We have to get into the European philosophy, European philosophers, European thinkers, because they set the foundation of how the research is going to go in terms of what they're looking for and what they're expecting out of said research. All right. So this man goes by the name of Thomas Robert Malthus. He was a British scholar, and he came up with a theory that he put in his 6th edition of an essay on the principles of population. Now, when you hear terms like Malthusian, or he's a Malthusianist, or this Malthusian mentality that certain people are, this is how they use it today. Now, it's based off of this man, Thomas Robert Malthus. He came up with an essay on the principle of population, and he posed a theory that if left unchecked, the human population would eventually surpass the Earth's capacity to produce food. This is what they call a Malthusian catastrophe. Now, according to Malthus, it's a natural occurrence that occurs within nature that doesn't allow this to happen because it pretty much regulates itself through famine, disease, and war. So the reason why throughout history at times we don't have this Malthusian catastrophe is because it'll be some type of famine somewhere where people die off, disease will kill people off, and warfare kills people off, right? So this is what prevents what he considers a Malthusian catastrophe, right? So with that being said, it will be this man, Charles Darwin, that will read the works of Thomas Robert Malthus, and he would say, oh, that's very interesting, because he's doing research on what we eventually would term the theory of evolution. And he said after reading the works of Malthus on population, he now had a theory in which to work with. What is his theory? His theory is based off of the preservation of favored races in the struggle of life. What does Malthus have to do with that? Well, Darwin is saying, well, if Malthus' theory is true, that means that famine, disease, and war has to kill off the less fit of the population. So we have a bunch of people, pretty much, if the earth is regulating itself, he's going to get rid of the lesser group. So in warfare, the strongest person is going to win, obviously. In disease, the more healthiest person is going to win. In famine, the people who can't find food are going to be the ones who die. Those are the people that are lesser in terms of, human population. So he's using the works of Robert Malthus to come up with his theory of what he calls natural selection. So the earth is naturally selecting this group of people to beat this group of people in warfare. The earth is naturally selecting this person to be healthy while this person is sick, right? So this person is also, the earth is naturally selecting these group of people to have food and these group of people to not have food, right? According to Charles Darwin's theory. Who is Charles Darwin? What is his thinking? Is it just basic purely off of science? Is this thing purely based off of them just wanting to understand nature and science? Let's dig in and see. Okay. In his book, The Descent of Man, he makes a very interesting statement in terms of humans on this planet, right? He says, at some future period, not very distant as measured by centuries, the civilized races of man will almost certainly exterminate and replace the savage races throughout the world. When I read this statement, a question comes into my head. Okay, who are the civilized races? And who are the savage races? Right? Because, what do he term to be savage and what do he term to be civilized is the question. Because it's a very powerful statement here. You first have to, that's the first question. Am I the savage? Am I going to be exterminated? I want to know who is the savage and who is the civilized races. This is the full statement of Charles Darwin. He says, at some future period not very distant as measured by centuries, the civilized races of man will almost certainly exterminate and replace throughout the world the savage races. At the same time, the anthropomorphous ape, as Professor Schaffenhausen has remarked, will no doubt be exterminated. The break then will be rendered wider, for it will intervene between man and a more civilized state, as we may hope, than the Caucasian and some ape as low as a baboon, instead of as at present between the Negro or Australian and the gorilla. What is he saying? This is a whole word salad. This English language is not our language. That is just not a talking point that a blackity black says. That is the truth. So let's break this down and see exactly what this statement means. What is he saying? The first statement that we read earlier, and a portion of this is clear. At some future period, there will be civilized races that will exterminate the savage races. But what is he saying in the rest of this word salad? At the same time, the anthropomorphous ape, as Professor Schaffenhausen has remarked, will no doubt be exterminated, right? The break will then be rendered wider, for it will intervene between man and a more civilized state, as we may hope, than the Caucasian and some ape as low as the baboon. So, the break will be rendered wider. The break will then be rendered wider, meaning that you have Caucasian, you have, the Mongoloid, you got the Negroid, and you got the Australoid, right? Then you got the gorilla, and the orangutan and baboon and whatever after that, right? So what he's saying is that you middle races, once you are exterminated, the break would then be rendered wider between the Caucasian and the baboon. Why? Because there will be no Mongoloid, there will be no Negroid, there will be no Australoid, right? There would just be the Caucasian and then the primate species, beginning with the gorilla, baboon, orangutan, rhesus monkey, etc., etc. That is what he's saying. Is that racist? He considers all black people to be savage, the savage races. He considered all of the Negroid race to be savages. Was Darwin a racist? Is this a racist statement, or is he basing this off of science? Let's dig deeper. This is another statement made by Charles Darwin. It is very true what you say about the higher races of men. Today, people say that race doesn't exist. We're all one race. So if that's the case, what is Darwin talking about? Is Darwin a racist? Is this the white man's science? Let's continue. It is very true what we say about the higher races of men. When high enough replacing and clearing off the lower races, in 500 years, how the Anglo-Saxon would have spread and exterminated whole nations. In consequences, how much the human race, viewed as a unit, would have risen in rank. Once again, this is the white man's language. These are the white man's words. So, we have to break this apart so we can totally understand what this cracker is saying. He states, it is very true that the higher races of men, when high enough, replacing and clearing off the lower races. In 500 years, how the Anglo-Saxon race will have spread and exterminated whole nations. In consequence of how much the human race, viewed as a unit, will have risen in rank. So what he is saying, once the Caucasian, the Anglo-Saxon race, the cracker, have exterminated whole nations, the human race as a unit will have risen, meaning that the Negro race is holding humanity back.